some people arrived and told Jesus about the Galileans, whose blood Pilate had mingled with that of their sacrifices. At this he said to them, "Do you suppose these Galileans who suffered like that were greater sinners than any other Galileans? They were not, I tell you. No, but unless you repent, you'll all perish as they did. Or those 18 on whom the Tower of Siloam fell and killed them, do you suppose they were more guilty than all the other people living in Jerusalem? They were not, I tell you. No, but unless you repent, you will all perish as they did." He told this parable. A man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came looking for fruit on it, but found none. He said to the man who looked after the vineyard, "Look here, for 3 years now I've been coming to look for fruit on this fig tree and finding none. Cut it down. Why should it be taking up the ground?" "Sir," the man replied, "leave it 1 more year and give me time to dig round it and manure it. It may bear fruit next year. If not, then you can cut it down." I saw a photograph the other day. It was black and white of hundreds of people crowding on a platform, trying to get onto a train. At first, I thought it was a photograph of children being evacuated during the Second World War. I've seen lots of pictures like that. I'm sure you have too. Children labelled and carrying just a few possessions as they're taken from home and family and sent to what was intended to be safety. But the picture wasn't from 80 years ago. It was taken just a day or two before I'd seen it on Facebook, and it had been turned to black and white to closer resemble images of children being evacuated. It was taken in the Ukraine. And something really moved me about that picture. I'm not sure what it was, but it moved me in a different way to many of the other images I've seen. Not more, but differently. Maybe it was the way it was presented, the similarity to images of children. And remembering that 80 years ago, my parents would have been amongst those children being taken from family. Maybe it makes what's happening in Ukraine more personal, closer. That the people fleeing violence there are our family just as much as my mum and dad. I don't know. Maybe it was something to do with the thought that history repeats itself, not just from 80 years ago to now in the Ukraine, but seemingly forever. In Syria and the Yemen and Afghanistan. We hear people talk of a nuclear deterrent keeping the peace. I wonder how safe, how peaceful the people of Ukraine feel. And you know, since nuclear weapons were invented, there hasn't been a single year when there hasn't been war somewhere in the world. In the whole history of America, there's only been 17 years when they haven't been at war with someone. When will we ever learn? As Pete Seeger once sang in the 60s. When will we stop drawing lines in the sand and saying, you can't cross it? When will we stop dividing people into us and them and treating them differently? It's hard not to be moved, to feel compassion when we see the images and hear the stories coming out of the Ukraine. It's hard not to be moved to do everything we can to help, but it's hard to talk in the same terms of loving the Russians who were invading that country. But if we don't, are we still dividing the world into us and them? Loving people doesn't mean agreeing with them. It doesn't mean not disagreeing, passionately, perhaps, strongly. And what of Putin? Could you ever love Putin? Could you ever forgive or pray for him? And if you could pray for him, what would that prayer be? And if it's wrong to talk of loving and forgiving Putin now, while he continues to wage war and cause such suffering for millions of people, when would be the right time? Would there ever be a time when it will be right to talk of forgiving Putin for what he has done and continues to do? Maybe it's just too raw to talk like that now. But maybe there's an invitation in that gospel and in those feelings that we have perhaps to reflect on where else we withhold forgiveness, where else we draw lines in the sand and divide people into us and them, and on what basis? Their nationality, their religion, their skin colour, their sexuality, or even just the colour of the football shirts they wear. If it means we divide people into us and them and treat them differently. People are different. We're all different. But that different doesn't mean we can't love or shouldn't love. It's hard not to be moved by the images of the Ukraine and to want to respond, to do something, to protest, to petition, to pray, to donate. And we will no doubt continue to do all of those things as sign of our love for the people in need. And rightly so. But maybe this is also a time to look a little closer to home, at those small seeds of division that have been planted in our lives, and to begin to heal some of those divisions, to erase some of those lines that have been drawn in the sand, and begin to look at building more bridges and fewer barriers.